Hey there, welcome back to the Kadara Woman podcast. I am your host, Lolashe Harris, and I am absolutely thrilled that you're joining us again for season 2's premiere. We're doing something special today. This is our very first video podcast episode. I know it's a little daunting, but we did it, and we just wanted to put a face to one of the amazing voices, so please be sure to watch this on our YouTube channel as well. All right, so today I'm sitting down with someone who's not just a guest, but a dear friend of almost 2 decades, Ukonwa. From growing up in Nigeria to becoming a multiple award-winning powerhouse marketing executive at brands like Amazon Prime, MAC Cosmetics, CoverGirl, Ukonwa's story is one you wouldn't want to miss. We get real about what it's like to be the only one in the room, the moment she decided to walk away from the pinnacle of corporate success to follow her purpose. You guys, that story in itself is just amazing. And how she now is building multiple businesses that align with her deepest values. This conversation is so full of those, oh, I needed to hear that head nod that you do when you just hear something that resonates. And so whether you're climbing the corporate ladder, thinking about a major career change, or just trying to figure out how to stay authentic in spaces that weren't designed for you, I hope you listen in as we kick off season 2 with this inspiring conversation that might just change the way you think about your own journey. We apologize for the sound quality in today's episode, and we appreciate your understanding. We tried something new, and sometimes it's just not perfect. But rest assured, you can expect our signature clear audio in all future episodes. Now let's dive into today's powerful conversation. Hello, Ukonwa. How are you?
Hi, Lola.
I love the blue.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, and I'm sure I'm going to ask you.
I did it for you.
Oh, thank you.
Colors,
I love colors. I love colors. And I'm sure I know where you got that from.
You probably can take a guess, yeah.
I didn't eat it.
That's right.
Well, I am super, super excited that you're here. And, this is our very first video podcast for the Kadara Woman podcast.
Oh my God.
I'm super excited to share this with you. And for the listeners and the viewers, we have viewers now, they probably don't know this, but we've been friends for 15 years now and counting.
Oh my God,
it's been that long. I know you don't have your grace.
I
have my grace. I'm kind of grace for you. I'm kind of grace for you. And we've been there through each other's career milestones, life, just everything in between that. And I've seen you just rising over time. And it's always still great to learn that you have an impact even through everything that you've accomplished. But before I distract myself, I actually want to start from the beginning.
Okay.
So I always love to start from how people, what their root is, their heritage, and how that influenced the woman you are today, and what African country you're from.
Yeah, so from Nigeria, but I've been in America now for, it seems like forever. But I went to high school in Nigeria. I was born there, raised there, graduated from high school, and then moved to the US. And a lot of times people ask me, like, why do you say you're Nigerian American and not just say you're American? I was like, when you spend your formative years in a country, it forms so much of who you are that if you don't give people that context, they may not understand why you do certain things you do. Like, Nigerians are loud, they're boisterous, or whatever. If I say I'm Nigerian American, you get that. If I just say I'm American, you may not understand like all those different nuances of my personality because I spent my formative years there. So yeah, I think that was definitely a really core part of forming who I am, who I was, who I'm going to be. And then of course like my family, father, my mom, my sisters and brothers, my aunts and uncles and cousins, which is you say you're Nigerian American, everybody's uncle, everybody's auntie, like the whole village kind of like raises you, right? So I think that also kind of forms like who you are. And of course, like most importantly, my faith, like my love of God, that has been the one consistent thing in my life. I have loved him and served him my entire life. And he's been so good to me. Yeah. And I would say that has also really informed who I am today. So yeah, those are probably the three biggest rocks of, my foundation.
I love that. And I know you talked about coming to the US when you were 15, right? Which is super early for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to know if you even remember that particular transition period And if there's anything you haven't shared about that experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really hard when you come to a completely different country, and in my case, you do it by yourself, like you do it without your parents. And you basically have to like stand on your own 2 feet. Like you have to figure out how to navigate a completely new society, how to navigate new language. Like we speak English in Nigeria, but American English and the nuances of the language are completely different. I remember coming over to America and I had to type all my papers and I couldn't type. So I had to like it's the little thing. Like I have memories of learning how to type. Like I had to take a typing class.
You didn't want to like do...
Yeah, like literally I was like, I had to take a typing class and I was like, I've never really had to like type before, which is really weird because I think that, I don't even know if that's a good thing. Like, how backwards is Nigeria that you didn't know how to type?
We knew what we understood what was going on.
I was like, we knew of computers, but I know now like Nigeria is such a technology hub and all of that. But back then, that was a transition, and like navigating like family and uncles and aunties and like all of that who were helping take care of me and not my parents, and I was so used to like being taken care of my parents. So yeah, like it was a really, really hard transition. But like I say, like God's been really faithful, and I think like I survived.
You survived.
I survived it, yeah, and I'm really grateful for that.
Do you remember what you wanted to be when you were younger?
Okay, so I had different phases. So the first thing I wanted to be was I wanted to be a musician, and I actually used the word musician.
What instrument?
I didn't even know. I just knew I wanted to be a musician. That was the first thing I actually articulated with my mouth that I wanted to be. And my grandfather was like, kind of like Whitney Houston, like, hail to the na, to the na, na, na. Like, he was like, no granddaughter of mine is going to be a musician. And I was like, really? Okay, then I better figure out something else that it's going to be. And so once I realized, okay, that was not going to be an option, then the rest of my family thought I should be a lawyer because I was always very outspoken. I was always very good at advocating for myself or whoever I chose to advocate for at that particular point in time. And so they were all so sure that I should be a lawyer. And I considered being a lawyer, but I actually ended up studying, I was good at math, and I actually ended up studying finance. Because when I was growing up, I would work for my dad, and I worked in the finance department, and I worked in the accounting and finance department. And so I got very comfortable with like accounting and finance and all of that. And so when I went to college and I had to pick a major, I was like, oh, I've actually done this. And so I kind of defaulted to what I could do versus what I would be great at. And it didn't take long for me to realize, while I can do this, I don't know that I want to do this for the rest of my life. And I had to then like go a lot deeper to then figure out, okay, if it's not that, then what is it going to be? And that was a whole process of like trying to figure that out.
Which we'll probably get to that. And I think it's important to touch on the fact that a lot of us do what we're good at, especially when we come to the States for education. Because that was similar to me. I was good at math and chemistry. And I went the chemical engineering route. Which, looking back now, I had no business on that track.
I don't know what I was doing over there.
And it's because of we just think that's what we're supposed to do. And to your point about being a musician, no one's going to approve that. I mean, now they're a little bit more lenient because of Afrobeats and everything. Yeah. But you had to be one of the major 4, right? Yeah. Lawyer, accountant, doctor, engineer, and then you sign off.
Doctor.
Yeah, now
I can't stand blood.
Actually, I took pre-med.
No, I cannot side the side of blood. I am a complete germaphobe. So that I ruled off like right away. I was like, okay, not doctor. So then what else is left?
But you were exposed to entrepreneurship, which we'll get to in a second, because you said you worked at your dad's company.
Yeah.
In finance.
My dad was an entrepreneur. My mom was an entrepreneur. My grandparents on both sides were entrepreneurs. So I'm the weird one, actually, for working in corporate. Like, they were like, oh, okay, if that's what you want to do, go for it. But I definitely come from like a long line of people who were entrepreneurs. And so that, I feel like that is in my DNA, was in my DNA. I kind of like pushed it away and I did the smart thing. It's like, I'm going to do what's going to get me a job. Because when you move here without your parents, like you want to make sure that you can stand on your own 2 feet and you do what you know will work.
Right.
And I knew that if I did accounting and finance, I knew I would get a job and that I would be independent and I'll be able to take care of myself. All the other things I wasn't sure, but I knew that would work, and it worked. Like I went to undergrad and I got a job right out of school, and I got a really well-paying job right out of school, and so I was like, yeah, it did what it was supposed to do.
Yeah. And then your undergrad was accounting and finance, right?
Yeah.
And then you went back and got an MBA from Kellogg, and then that pretty much launched your marketing career, which you spent 27 years. And if I may, I think we talked about, we haven't talked about it, but you had notable positions, including Global Chief Marketing Officer of Amazon Prime, MAC Cosmetics, CoverGirl, and of course, General Mills, which is where we met ages ago, a long time ago. But I'm going to ask you more about the moments in between all those headlines, right? And I'm curious to know if there was anything challenging that you were going through behind the scenes and how you overcame it.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was going through corporate America and being very notably different. So a lot of people celebrate, and I tell people this all the time, a lot of people celebrate when you are the first. Oh my God, first Black woman to do this, first woman to do this, first Black person to do this. And nobody really talks about how lonely it is after the celebration is over. So you go through everybody's sharing the article. You did this. Oh my God, you did that. Oh, we love to see it. And then the celebration dies down and you walk into the room and you are the only one. And when stuff hits the fan, there's nobody to go to, or you don't know if you can trust them. And so that I would say was probably the hardest thing. Because what happens is when you are different, then when you actually show up and you're different than anybody else, nobody knows what to do with that. Your boss doesn't know what to do with that. Your colleagues don't know what to do with that. And I remember, I'll give you one example. I'm talking to a boss of mine, and at one of the roles that everybody celebrated that I was in. And I remember when we did my performance review, and they go, "Oh my God, the results that you have driven in the last year, I have never seen anybody do something like this so quickly. I literally have never seen it. It is," and I'm like, "Oh my God, that's amazing. I'm crushing it." And he's like, and he goes on and on and on. And I'm feeling, and then all Black people know the but. And so it's like, you're like, "This is amazing. I love this." And then the but comes.
Oh my goodness.
Right. And then the but comes. And what's on the other hand? And it's like, everybody knows that pit in their stomach. And they're like, "But there are all these other things that we would love for you to fix. If you could do this differently and do this
differently." Was that
and
your personality?
And a lot of those are personality driven. If you could fix this, and you could do 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 that. And what saved me was I read this book about Miles Monroe. I think it's called In Pursuit of Purpose. I recommend that book to everybody. And that book saved me because it gave me the language for me to have that kind of conversation when people are like, we're so loved that you can do what nobody else does, but can you please behave like everybody else? And so what I would ask as a question after the but would be I would love to have a mentor through this process so I can figure out how to continue to deliver these results, but in the specific way that you want me to do it. And so I would always ask, can you give me an example of someone in the organization that can mentor me, that is able to deliver these results that you think are so incredible, but also has all these traits that you think that I should demonstrate as well?
Right.
And after I would ask that question, it never fails. Every single time they go, "Great question. Let me think about it." I'm like, "Yeah, because there's 20,000 people or 30,000 people or 1 million people that work here. So surely there has to be an example of someone that can have all these traits, but then do these results that you've never seen." And I've never had a boss come up with an example.
But there isn't. There isn't. They're missing the fact that everything that makes you use what makes you do that work.
And that for me is not forgetting that fact. Right. It's the fact is if you are the first and you're the only, most likely the benefit of the diversity is like that diversity allows you to see things that have never been seen before, allow you to do things very differently than they've ever seen before. It then allows you to deliver results they've never seen before. And it's not possible for them to have one without the other. So it's like, if you're going to have the benefit of the diversity, then you're going to have to be okay with the diversity.
The whole package.
Yeah, because what cannot happen is you have the benefit of the diversity, but you want me to be like everybody else.
Right.
Logically, that doesn't
It's not possible.
Yeah, it's like,
it doesn't add up.
The math is not mathing.
No.
And so earlier on in my career, I wasn't confident enough and I didn't know the language. And I didn't have the confidence of knowing that only the creator, only the person, and that's where Miles Monroe is helpful. It's like, only the person that made the thing knows why that thing is the way it was and why they shaped it the way that it was. And if you are not the creator, you don't really know the thing. Like if you want to fix an iPhone, you gotta go to Apple. Like they made it, they know all the intricacies of that. Like you're gonna have to take a class or something. You're gonna have to really understand and study that to be able to speak about it. And a lot of people, especially when dealing with people that are different than them, try to understand you or try to give you context when they don't know the person who made you or why they made you the way that you are. And I think the more confident I became in knowing that and moving in that power, it actually allowed me to deliver much better results in my career because I was trying to be different. I was trying to be the same. And that, like, it wasn't working. It doesn't work.
It wasn't working. So I love that you talked about the clarity of tying who you are to the creator, which I think is part of what this platform is about, right? It's all about highlighting people who have figured it out in that moment of clarity. A lot of people tie it to their faith, and then they decide to just go on that path. Because I do agree with you. We're all created for a particular reason. Some people, multiple reasons. It doesn't even matter the size, but there's something in you that you're supposed to bring out into the world. And so it's funny you said that because I thought it was a good segue to talk about brand Ukonwa, right? Because I don't think you intentionally set out to become the brand that you are. And I'm curious to know, A, how did you figure out along the way when the brand was growing, right? How to keep parts of you private and the parts of you to expose by virtue of your roles, because you had very public roles.
Yeah. It's funny, like people talk about personal branding a lot. I'm not a big believer in personal branding, to be honest, because I think that it allows you to focus on the wrong things. And it gives people almost like license to focus on the wrong things. My perspective is to give glory to the person who made me. I just decided to live myself out loud. And I think people interpreted that as like a branding thing. Because I remember someone asking me, like, you have such a clear personal brand, like even your hair, like you have this thing. I was like, this is not a brand. This has like grows out of my head. Like I just decided one day that if my hair grows kinky, I'm gonna wear it kinky. It was not like a branding thing where I was just like, ooh, personal branding of Ukonwa. My hair is gonna look like this. I'm gonna dress like this. I'm gonna talk like this. I was like, no, I just decided if God made me this way, there must have been a reason why. And I'm just gonna live that out loud in all the different areas of my life, from the little things like my hair to my personality, to my confidence, to my love of my family and my love of working hard, but also having like loving rest, my love of travel. Like it was all these things that I wasn't totally sure if I could live them out loud because I was like, is that okay? Is that permitted? And at some point in my 30s, I was like, you know what? What you see is what you get. And I actually think that God must have made me this way for a reason. So I'm just going to really lean into that. And I'm just going to be that. And I think in doing that, other people may have interpreted that as a brand. But to be honest.
But it was consistent because it was authentic.
It was authentic.
But it also sounds like it was around the time when everything was just taken off too. When you stepped into it, right? Is that how it was?
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. Because I actually gave a commencement address at my alma mater at UNC. And one of the points that I talked about is that if you think of your career as a pyramid, your sameness is what gives you kind of like an entry into the door. So the base of the pyramid has a lot of people.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people that graduate from college. There are a lot of people that have very similar credentials as you. And you all start, in fact, a lot of times you come in as a class.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be like the marketing class of 2005 or whatever at General Mills. Or whatever. So you come in, and at that point, it's kind of about your sameness.
Mm-hmm.
And somewhere in the middle of your career, for the pyramid to keep getting smaller, it's a pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
Some people never figure out the game. And the game is your sameness may get you in, but it's your difference that takes you farther.
Right. I like that.
Because the reality is now there's a lot of you, and they have to figure out how many of you are going to go to the next level. And you're probably not going to get to the next level because you're just like everybody else.
Yep.
So do you deliver results different than everybody else? Is your style different than everybody else? Is your perspective different than everybody else? Are you bringing skills and knowledge that nobody else has? Like at that point, they have to be like, I got to go from 40 to 10. Why should you be part of the 10?
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's your difference that takes you further.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it was a coincidence that I kind of woke up one day and I was like, you know what? I've tried the other way, and it's given me a lot of heartache, and it's given me a lot of frustration, and it's led me to kind of doubt myself. And I'm going to just decide that I don't think God made a mistake when he made me. And if people want me, they're going to have to take everything that God made, the good, the bad, the everything. And as I started to do that, I started to actually get better business results.
When was that realization? Was that General Mills or afterwards?
It was, I would say it was like in the middle of, I would say my 30s. And so I don't even know. Yeah, I would say my 30s. And in my 30s, I worked at a number of different companies. I worked at General Mills. I worked at Reckitt Benckiser. I worked at Unilever. So I would say like that entire time period, I was kind of like coming into myself. And so you'll see that like over time, I was just coming into myself. And so and it started like with the little things. Like I even remember the moment when I saw Viola Davis at the Oscars, and she had her hair short at the Oscars and in her natural hair. And I was like, I don't think I've ever seen that before.
Everyone else has
weaves. And I was like, that's actually really cool. I literally did my big chop after that.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, if she can wear it on the red carpet, then surely I can wear it to work.
Representation.
I was like, I can wear it to work. Like, why don't I feel like I can wear the hair God gave me to work? And it was just like this. And so it was those little things. And that's why I was like, it wasn't just like one thing. It was like, okay, I'm going to wear my natural hair. Okay, I'm going to, talk about the fact that I'm not going to pretend like I don't have a child. Like I remember I would leave like at 5:00 to go pick up my kid, and then I would, and then I would re-engage later on at night. And I, in the beginning, you try to like pretend like you don't have a child, like you're just gonna like work like
because of the pressures of the job.
Oh yeah, you want to work like everybody else works, and then you're like, no, actually, this doesn't work because I literally have to go pick up my kid. And so being very upfront about the fact that I'm gonna go pick up my kid. If I still have stuff to do, I'll do it.
Right.
After he's eaten, he's gone to bed, whatever, I'll re-engage. But like, I'm gonna stop kind of trying to like maybe get a nanny to pick up my kid so that to you don't think that I have a kid. Because like something is happening like behind the scenes and it's invincible.
And it's a part of you.
Yeah. A very important part of me that I pray to God for, by the way. And so I'm like, no, I'm gonna be like, I have a child. I have to go pick him up, and I will go do that, and I will make sure he's taken care of. And after that, I will get back on, and I'll make sure you have what you need to.
And deliver results.
And deliver the result. I will always deliver the result. But even those little things, all of a sudden, like that starts to endear you to people, because now people on your team are like, oh my God, thank you. I can be a mom too.
Exactly.
Because I was hiding the fact that I was a mom. Thank you for being a mom out loud so that I can be a mom out loud. And it's like, it's one little thing after another. It's the hair, it's the mom, it's the, the love of your spouse. Like it's all these little, your faith. Like it's all these things that you feel like you kind of have to hide because you're trying to be like everybody else. And at some point, you go, no, I'm gonna live my life out loud. And you start to be, people start saying, oh wow, seeing you live your life out loud gave me the confidence to do the same. And everybody's thing is different. But as you live all the different parts of yourself, each part of yourself can be an inspiration to someone else.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. So I do remember you when you were, I think it was at Amazon, and you got an opportunity to go back to Nigeria at that role. And I just thought that was such a full circle moment because you also got to go back to the high school.
Yeah, I did.
And do you remember going back in a corporate role to your high school? And of course, there's some listeners who are going to want to know this high school, so make sure you disclose that. You know the rivalry that goes on in Nigeria,
like the best high school.
Oh my goodness, we're not
college, and it's Yaba Lagos.
Oh my goodness, we're not doing that. We're not doing that.
The other fake QC, but there's only one QC. It's Queen's College, the one in Yaba.
Oh my goodness. Why do QC
always
girls,
repping?
Why do QC girls do this all the time? We just ask one question.
Always.
One question.
Always.
So anyways, when you went back to QC,
yeah.
How was that moment? And do you remember how that affected you?
It was probably one of the most emotional moments of my career because it was kind of a last minute thing. I went back to Nigeria. I got invited by the AFRIF, which is the African Film Festival. And I was a keynote speaker for AFRIF. So I flew to Nigeria to go speak there. And so I was like, you know what? It would actually be really cool since I haven't been back home in a bit. I'm back home. It would be really cool to go to QC. So I had a really good friend of mine, Shalakwe, who's part of kind of the QC Old Girls Association. And so reached out to her. I was like, I'm coming in. I think it would be cool, blah, blah, blah. And like Shalakwe took it like to like the nth degree.
That's what you guys do though. You guys do the most.
Well, we always do. That's why we're like, and so I went there and like literally it was at the end of my trip. I think I was there the whole week and it was like the day before I flew out. It was like Friday or something. And so I was like, I finished speaking of AFRIF. It was like the whole week and then I'm going to go to QC. And then I go to QC and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do there. And she's like, oh, you know, I think it would be great if you address the girls at assembly. And I remember being one of those girls at assembly. And so I showed up at assembly and I couldn't believe how many girls were there. And they were so, like literally as soon as I showed up, they were so excited that I showed up. And it was a very short speech, but it was a heartfelt speech. And I talked to them, and I remember it was like 8 minutes. It was super, super short. And I talked to them about my career track, and I just wanted to inspire them, to let them know that just because they started here, that any position in the world like is their oyster, that they can do anything, because I was them. And I didn't even imagine at that point in time that I would go to the US. I didn't imagine at that point in time that I would be running global marketing for Prime Video. Like I didn't imagine all of these things. And I just wanted them to know that it was all possible for them. And after the speech, I decided to go downstairs and meet with the girls. And when I say I got mobbed, like I got mobbed. Like Amazon security had to come to pull me out of the crowd.
Oh, wow.
Because like the girls just literally...
You're one of them.
Lost it. Like they just were so excited. And when Amazon security kind of like, they were worried about my safety. So they pulled me back. And I just had tears in my eyes.
I'm sure.
Because I was just like, God, like you just look out and you see the potential and you realize that any one of those girls could go to a number of different places. And if this moment inspires them to what is possible, it was truly, truly, truly a full circle moment. One, for the full circle moment of it. And then the second was like, it just reminded me how good God had been to me. And I was just like, God, I don't know why you picked me. Because I was just like one of hundreds of girls. So why did you pick me to have this path
Yeah.
in another country, so far away.
Yeah.
Like, who would have thunk it? And so it was very emotional for me because I was just like,
I'm emotional now.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know why you picked me.
Yeah.
But I'm so grateful that you did. And I will serve. I already was going to serve you my whole life, but I will serve you my whole life. Because I remember where I came from. And I remember that I didn't have to have this path. And I would still have been successful if I didn't have this path.
Right.
Because whatever path God has for your life, so long as you're living in your purpose is success. But to be able to have success spiritually, but also success in the way that you define success or the way that the world will define success, it's a privilege. Yeah. And I was just like, I don't know why you chose me, but I'm grateful. I'm truly, truly, truly grateful.
It's funny that we're emotional now because this happened years ago. And I remember when you told me about that moment too, because I saw it on IG and I remember texting you. I can't remember how. I was like, oh my goodness, it must have been an amazing moment. Incredible. And then you told me about, what you said, which was unplanned. It was just a last minute thing. And I love what you just said about I was always going to serve you, but I will serve you. And so it's a great segue into this part of the conversation, which I call the Kadara moment, the moment when it just hits you with clarity. This is what I'm going to do. And it sounds like you had that moment from that experience. Was that the beginning of the decision to leave corporate America?
Yeah. Leaving corporate America was, I would say, several decades in the making. We started about everybody in my family was an entrepreneur. And I was the weird one.
The wayward child.
Yeah, I was the weird one. And so I always knew that I would go back to being an entrepreneur. It was just a matter of when. The only thing that they don't tell you is you have golden handcuffs. Yep. So the more successful you are, the harder it is to walk away. And like God literally had to help me with that part. Because I think that's what made it harder. So sometimes it's actually easier to do it when you're young and you're broke and it's like you don't have any other option, right?
Right.
But when you've gone on this path with God and he helps you be really successful and he goes, that's great. Now it's time to do this other thing. You're like, are you sure? I don't know if that was you. Let me think about that some more. I'm going to pray about that because I'm not totally sure. You want me to walk away from what exactly? I don't know because I kind of like the way things are now. It's kind of cush. And so that's when it gets really, really difficult. But there were so many kind of markers along the way that made it clear that not only was I supposed to go back to being an entrepreneur, it made the timing very clear.
What one of those markers? If you want to share.
Yeah. There were a lot of them. I would say, I'm trying to see what aspects of it I want to share. So one, I was a part of the Henry Crown Fellowship.
Okay.
And that fellowship at the Aspen Institute, in a lot of ways, actually really changed my life. Because they talk about like going from success to significance, because they give you the tools to make that transition. So for one, they're basically like, okay, you've had a very successful career, but as you look at the next few decades of your life, what is the legacy that you want to leave?
Right.
And for some people, it's one and the same. The career that they're in, they're already on the track to leave the legacy. But I knew that was different for me. I knew that, yes, I was successful in what I was doing, but there were a couple things that like God had made clear to me that he wanted me to do. And I knew that if I waited till the end of my life and I hadn't done them, I would really regret not doing them. And I wouldn't have a good enough excuse to God as to why I didn't do it. Because at some point, it was like, why did I keep on the path that I was? To get a bigger house? To get a bigger car? To get more cars? To travel to more? Like what? None of those things if I got face to face with God at the end of my life, why would I tell him that I didn't do what he asked me to do? Especially the same person who had been so kind to bless me in ways that I didn't deserve. And so for me, I was just like, yeah, no, I don't think this is the thing that I'm supposed to, at the end of my life, say, oh, like, what did you do with your life? And I'll be like, oh, well, I just continued on the path you asked me not to stay on. But look at all the houses I bought and look at all the cars I got. I don't think he would care about that.
Right.
We know he won't care about that.
So you already knew what you were supposed to do, but you were kind of praying over it, like, are you sure it's you talking?
Or like saying I could do it in 5 years. I could do it.
I could pushing the timeline out.
But then nobody guarantees you
right
that you have, not to be morbid, but like nobody guarantees you that you're gonna have that time. And so if you're not guaranteed to have that time, then you just need to obey. And so at that point in time, I've spent so much time, like my walk with him now is so much closer than it was even back then, because I've had a lot of time to deepen my relationship with him. As an entrepreneur, I've actually built my life around my relationship with him. So it's a little bit different now. But now, as I've gotten closer to him, I know even more now that the only KPI, so key performance indicator, the only KPI God cares about is obedience.
That's true.
He doesn't care about anything.
But the work will get done. The work.
Like he literally, and if you don't do it, he will take it from you and he will give it to someone else. And he literally said that to me. He was like, I have given you this thing to do. If you do not do it, I will give it to somebody else to do it. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. Because what is not going to happen is not after you've been so good to me. I'm going to be like, oh, yeah, give it to somebody else. I don't want to be bothered with that. And I said, no, if obedience is what you care about, then I will stop. And I will obey. And I will trust you with the rest of it. And that started the chapter. And that was really hard. And so like laying down.
It was hard because of the golden handcuffs, right?
Because of the golden handcuffs. It was hard because the reality is you have to lay aside your selfish ambition. And be like, why do I have an ambition that it's outside of the purpose of my creator? Where did that come from? And why do I have that? And like, those are questions we don't really want to answer. Because that means you're either worshiping yourself or you are worshiping something that is not yourself and is not God,
right?
Which you shouldn't be doing.
Right.
And so for me, it was just like really delving deep enough to be like, where is this selfish ambition coming from if it's not aligned with God? If your selfish ambition is what he told you to do, awesome, go for it. But if it's different than that, then at least in my case, I had to stop and reflect and go, why is that? And then what do you want me to do? And how do I pivot so that they're both aligned and they're both in the same place?
Right. And
that was a period of probably 6 months to a year.
From the clarity moment to when you actually made it.
Yeah, that was a long moment of just a lot of prayer, tears, fighting.
And you involved your spouse?
Asking forgiveness. Like, it was a lot of that, like a lot of just really soul searching.
And did you do that on your own, like just self-reflection, praying? Do you have any mentors that just guided you through that process when you're just trying to get that clarity?
I would say Henry Crown was a big part of that, was helpful with that. I would say my husband was a really big part of that, because I think one of the things that you kind of have to realize, at least I realized in my life, when you get married, you and your spouse become one. And so you can't also, like, having an ambition that's also outside of your spouse is also kind of weird. And so if I'm now saying, oh, I feel like I'm being kind of like led in this area, doing that outside of my spouse is also kind of weird. And so like I have to have a conversation with my spouse to be like, I feel like I'm supposed to be doing this thing. And your expectation is, if you've been doing this, you've been on this track, you don't know how your spouse is going to react to that.
Right.
But my husband was like, oh my God, I'm behind you 1000%. Like, whatever it is you want to do, like, I got you. And so being able to make that transition together as partners and as friends and as husband and wife. He was definitely a core part of that. My sisters, I'm so close to my sisters, and their counsel, they were definitely part of that. My dad, like, my mom has passed away, but definitely my dad. But yeah, a lot of people that have been part of my personal board of directors really my whole life. The direction came from God, but the counsel, as you kind of pivot, you get counsel along the way from people that you respect and that you trust and you know, like, want the best for you. And so being unafraid to ask for that help and to get that help. Yeah.
So you said pivot, and I think it's perfect because we're pivoted into the purpose, the clarity, the work that you were told to do. And I know you have a lot of dreams. We all have a lot of dreams, actually. So how did you figure out the first one to tackle? Yeah, and what was the first one that you were like, okay, I made a decision. I'm leaving corporate. I'm leaving at the pinnacle of my career. And everybody around you was probably thinking, are you crazy? And you're like, no, I've done the work. It took me a couple of months to get there. Now, what am I going to do first? How did you figure that out? And what was it?
Yeah. So I would say the number one thing was recognizing that my life was completely out of balance. So if you asked me what my priorities were, I would have said my faith, my family, my friends, and then my work. But in reality, what my life was like, it was my work, then my work, then my work, then my work, and then everybody else. And you know, as my friend, that the friend part, by the time I got through all the works, and then I got the family, and then the friends will like totally get shafted. And my life was completely out of balance. And so one of the things I knew after spending time was like, okay, I know that what's really important to me is that in this second half of my life would be, I wanted my faith to be my work so that I could spend so much of my time and energy doing that. And so like it would automatically be in alignment because it would become my work.
Right.
And so I knew that the direction was going to be there. I didn't completely know how, but I knew the direction was going to be there. And so I started spending more time with God. I started reading my Bible. I started praying a lot. And it was one of the times that I was reading my Bible that I ran across John 17, 20 to 23. And it was Jesus after the Lord's Supper, and he was talking to his Father, God. And he basically said, this prayer is for, not just for my disciples, but for everyone who believes in me. And he says, I wish they would be one as you and I are one. And if they are, the world will know that you sent me and that you love them as much as you love me. And when I read that, it was like I had served him my whole life, but I had never read that. And it had a very different meaning for me because it almost became like, oh, why haven't I seen that before? So if the world is going to know that he loves them, they're going to know that when we are one. Well, are we one? Why aren't we one? And that became kind of an obsession. And I describe it sometimes as a burden. And so I started doing research and I realized that there were 2.6 billion Christians around the world, but what had started with like Jesus and his 12 disciples had now splintered into like 46,000 denominations and rites. And I became completely obsessed with turning that around. And then I said, what does it look like if all of the Christians around the world came together in one place? And I spent a lot of time obsessing for that. And what came out of that is what today is known as Zaia. So Zaia. And that is a platform that is now available on the App Store, on Google Play Store. And my vision is it will be the platform where every Christian is going to come together. And the vision is that in coming together, the world will know that he sent Jesus and that and God loves them as much as he loves his own son. And so that has become the obsession of my life. And that is something I know that I will spend the next however many more decades God gives me of my life, is working towards that unity in the body, and doing whatever I can do to help that unity in the body. So yeah,
That was the work. That
that
was the one
that is the real
that
work.
kept coming back.
That's the real
And then
work.
you have Zaia Ventures.
Yeah.
That's kind of like a backing behind that, right? And that, you want to talk about Zaia Ventures too?
Yeah. So what I basically did was I created Zaia Ventures to house these kind of visions that God had given me and given me the opportunity to bring them to life. And so it's a venture studio. And so what we do is we see a white space, we either build something in that white space or we invest behind the founder in that space. And so Zaia, which is the tech platform to bring all Christians worldwide together, our 2.6 billion, almost 3 billion of us, is one of the companies that we have founded under Zaia Ventures. The second thing for me was my mom passed away like really tragically about 12 years ago, and I just felt like she was really gone too soon. And I wanted to make sure that the world never forgot who she was. And so my mom was a fashion designer, so I get my fashion sense from her. And my sisters and I thought it would be really cool if we started a business or a brand in her name and honor, so that the world would never forget her. And so Ada and Edith is the other place where I spend a lot of my time. And so we also founded Ada and Edith, which is kind of a luxury apparel line for women. And Ada is my mom's first name, Edith is my mom's middle name. And so everywhere that, Ada and Edith shows up, and it's, we've already gotten coverage, whether it's on TV or in certain publications, like everybody gets to know who my mom is. And I get so much joy from that.
But wait, we're not going to go, you're not just going to skim. What are we wearing right now?
Yes, Ada and Edith.
Yes, and I'm repping this is Ada and Edith as well. And I remember actually when you told me about Ada and Edith, you were sketching designs. And I remember saying, I hope there's going to be yellow in one of your creations, because that's my favorite color.
She loves yellow. And
she came. This is why it's good to have a friend who's a fashion designer, because you can just make demands. Demands, by the way, because there are a lot of things she's created. I'm like, are you going to make yellow? But yes, I wanted to acknowledge that we're both wearing Ada and Edith, and I thought it worked. It just worked, and so. Thank you for listening to. See, did you know when we were sketching that this would come? Exactly.
No. See, you never know.
You never know.
Lean into it, and
exactly.
It happens.
So Ada and Edith happens. It's almost a year old, right?
A year, yeah.
It's already, and you already got a lot of press in Houston, actually.
Yeah.
And actually, not just in Houston, around the U.S.
Around
as
the
well.
U.S., yeah.
And it's quality clothes, and it's actually very. I loved how thoughtful you were about that line, because you literally were just like, it's for the woman who's a woman today.
Yes.
It's not, we all know about the Spanx and all the things we're trying to hold together. And this is comfortable clothes. I'm not exaggerating. And so it's very, very thoughtful clothes.
Yes.
And then there was the Ventures, which also does technology investments, right? And I know you have a certain underrepresented communities that you invest in, right?
Yeah, so there's kind of two aspects to what we do. So one is investing behind the companies that we're building. So Zaia is one, the tech platform for Christians. Ada and Edith is the second. And then the third bucket is we want to get behind underrepresented founders. And where we see incredible founders that have great ideas, where we believe we can help, because we can't help everywhere. So it's in the spaces that I know really well and I believe that I can help. Where we believe we can help, and then we invest in the founders, not just in financial resources, but then also in advice and in advisory resources as well, or making introductions where it's necessary, or making connections, where it's necessary. And so, I know one that we haven't publicized all the investments we've made, but one that we have publicized is our investment in Tapes Animation Studios.
Oh, cool.
That's very.
I've never seen that.
Yeah, it was in Variety and it was covered in different publications around the world. And that's really about taking African stories to the world. And obviously, having worked on movies and TV shows at Amazon Prime Video, when I met Adeoye, who's the founder and the CEO, I just thought they had a really compelling vision, and I wanted to be a part of it, and I thought that I could help them on that journey. So they're already doing an incredible job, but it's fantastic to kind of go along the ride, with them and help them however they need help on their journey to take African stories to the world. So I'm super excited about that as well.
So let's just track this. In the last couple of years, you've pretty much given birth to 3 business babies.
Yeah.
Ventures, Zaia app, and then Ada and Edith.
Yeah.
And then they're just all toddling right now, which is amazing. Yeah. And so you basically went from 1 to multiple. Yeah. That means there's probably more coming out. So I guess you just have to stay tuned. Yeah. So what has been the hardest thing you had to learn becoming an entrepreneur?
I would say the hardest thing is, and I think I've shared this with you before, because like you said, we're friends, is the biggest thing is you have to learn to take your ego, put it on a plate, and eat it every day. Every day.
You're going to explain that for people.
Every day. You're like, what did you eat today? I ate my ego. I had it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
What happened?
Yeah. Because you come from being a corporate executive, you have massive teams, massive budgets, sometimes billions of dollars you were managing, teams around the world. Literally you send an email and people are like, what you need? We are here for you. Let's go. And to some extent, because of the profile that you have, you still get some of that, but it's nothing like, if I send an email saying Amazon needs, they're like, what do you need? We are here for you. And so for me, making that transition and recognizing I was going to start a business, but I wasn't going to start with a team of 1,000. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I have a team, but I don't have anywhere near the team that I had before. And I have resources, but I'm not managing a multi-billion-dollar budget.
Right.
And so that's where you go, this is different than what I used to do before. It's a more meaningful and purposeful vision. And it will grow to be, we will build multiple multi-billion-dollar businesses. I have zero doubt about that. We will definitely do that. But the journey to that place requires patience, requires humility, requires trusting other people, and humbling yourself, and trusting other people along the way. And I think for me, that was the biggest, you just realize that, day one, all of a sudden, your team is a lot smaller than it used to be. And so you just stretch yourself in ways that you didn't stretch yourself before. On the other hand, I actually think that's a really good thing.
Yeah.
Because I have learned so much that I didn't even know that I would learn. And so there are other sides to that. And then you meet so many incredible people. Like yesterday, we had a trunk show for Ada and Edith, and I met the most incredible human beings. And I don't know if I would have maybe I would have met them in my, past life. But the fact is I'm meeting them now, and it filled my cup, and I woke up and I was filled with joy when I woke up this morning. And I don't know that I would have met them before. So there are definitely joys that go along with that. And I wouldn't trade this for my past life. But there are definitely times when you have to deal with things. You're like, why am I dealing with this? I would never have dealt with this in the past. I remember when we were launching Ada and Edith, the first shoot we did in London. And because, and I thought it would be really cool to do it in London because my mom went to fashion school in London and it felt like a really full circle moment. And so the shoot is the next day and the clothes had been shipped from, our clothes are made in Italy, they're woven in Italy, made in Italy, and then they ship it for the shoot and the clothes don't arrive. Oh. And you have the shoot happening. And I'm like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. Like, we need to have this photo shoot. And so I put on my entrepreneur hat and I went to the UPS warehouse. And I was like, where are my clothes? I am not leaving here until you give me my clothes. And they were like, ma'am, you can't be here. They were like,
the Nigerian you came
yeah.
out.
They were like, ma'am, you can't be here. I was like, no, what you don't understand is I have a shoot happening tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to be with my clothes tomorrow. And I understand it's in this warehouse somewhere, but you haven't delivered it. So I'm going to need you to go back into that warehouse and find my clothes. They thought I was kidding. I was like, I'm not leaving here.
Because the shoot is also costing you money.
Yeah, and you have teams of people. You have models, photographers.
Mm-hmm.
You book, like there are a lot of things that kind of go into this moment. And in that moment, I was like, why am I here? I would never have been here before.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is crazy. But they went in the warehouse and they got my clothes. And they found my shipment. And we shot as expected. But there was a moment where I'm standing in this warehouse and I would be like, why am I in this warehouse? How did I end up here?
What am I doing with my life?
What am I doing with my life that I'm in this warehouse?
Yeah.
Like, telling a guy that, like, he better go find my clothes. That is a moment where you're like, I'm going to take my ego. I'm going to put it on a plate. I'm going to eat it. So you're like, this is the part of my ego that I ate today. But I got my clothes, though.
And you put suya on it. Suya pepper, because I know you like suya pepper.
Yeah, put suya, chop it up, grill it if you want, put some olive oil on it, whatever. Just put the ego, eat it, and be like, you got to do what you got to do. And that was not a moment to be executive Ukonwa. Like, I trust that you will handle it. Who's the you?
Pick up a mirror.
Who is the you? The you is you. You pick up your phone, do the selfie, flip it around, be like, you're going to handle it. You're going to drive down to UPS. You're going to sit in that warehouse. And you're going to say, I'm not leaving this place until you give me my shipment. And so those are the moments where, like, I didn't have to do that before, but I have to do it now. But now it's a story that I can now tell about what it was like on this. So everybody then saw the shoot, and it was like an incredible launch.
I didn't know this story.
We had such an amazing launch, but nobody knew that shoot almost didn't happen. Like, it was just like, it almost didn't happen. I didn't have this full circle moment of shooting it in London where my mom got her fashion education. So yeah, like, there are definitely like painful moments, but then sometimes out of those painful moments come growth and strength and humility and joy. And so when you're on the other side of it, you're like, oh, that was painful, but that was actually kind of fun. Kind of like having a baby. Like, it's really painful to go through it, but then at the moment where you see a baby, you're like, oh my God, like, that was totally worth it. Entrepreneurship is a lot like that.
All right, so we talked about your life as an entrepreneur, and you've had some pivotal moments and opportunities that have happened without your titles, right? One of them that you actually talked about earlier in the conversation, which was when you went back to give a keynote speech. That happened recently after the titles. Do you remember getting that call and what that felt like?
Yeah, it's interesting. There's been a few moments like that, because when you walk away from corporate, you wonder what your life will be like without, my name is Ukonwa, I am the CMO of X. And you know that whatever it is you're going to do after, there's going to be a time where you build it up to be as big as X, but there's always a point of transition. For some people, it's a day. For some people, it's a year. For some people, it's 10 years. Some people, it's their whole kind of lifetime. And you don't know how long it's going to take, but you have to kind of emotionally prepare yourself for that period. And so I had to recognize that, like, yeah, I was probably going to lose some cachet in this transition. And for some people, that kind of keeps them from going into their purpose, because they don't want to deal with that transition, that murky, yucky bit, like in the middle, that transition point. They don't want to go through that. But when I said, you know what, I'm going to do this. God, if this is what you want me to do, I'm all in. Let's go. Let's do this. And whatever happens, happens. And I was prepared for my yucky bit to take a long period of time. But it's so funny that there's so many times when you kind of like give things over to God, and then he goes, I just wanted to see if you'll give it over. But since you're so willing to give it over, I'm going to give it to you anyway. And so it was so great that very quickly, really after I left corporate and I started building I had so many opportunities kind of come to me when UNC came to me and said, would you give our commencement address? And they billed me as Ukonwa CEO of Zaia Ventures. I was like, oh my God, like I'm giving my commencement address as an entrepreneur. I'm being billed as what I'm creating. And that was such a powerful moment for me. And it was incredible. And talk about another, full circle moment to be standing. I didn't even go to my graduation. I didn't because I was being cheap. I was like, I loaded up on the credits, graduated in December, and started working. Wow. Because I was just like, I just need to go out there and make some money. And graduation, I started working, and then graduation was like after I had started working. And so I had to go back to my school. I was like, no, I'm not paying a flight ticket, hotel to go walk on the stage. And so when UNC called me to do the commencement, they didn't realize that I had never walked.
Oh, wow.
And so I was actually very emotional. Maybe I'll even at some point share the video, because they shared the video with me. I was very emotional at the commencement speech because I was like, you don't understand the gift that you gave me. The first gift is I got to walk, because as the commencement speaker, you kind of walk ahead of the students. And so I was walking, I was like, God, you're a great restorer, right? Because you didn't have to give me this. So not only do I get to be commencement speaker, but I get to walk in the graduation ceremony. And this is such a gift and a full circle moment that I get to do this. But then also coming back, and like I did at Queen's College, going back to UNC Chapel Hill to the business school and saying, look at what happens to your life. And I talked to them like I was talking to the very young me that would have been sitting there, and say, look at what has happened to your life, and everything you dreamed would happen, like it actually happened, right? And so at the end of my speech, I was talking to younger Ukonwa, and I said, and you get to come back here as the commencement speaker. And I just broke down. It was very emotional for me. And I did it as Ukonwa CEO of Zaia Ventures. And it was a perfect time for me to go back as commencement speaker, because I dreamed of being an entrepreneur when I was in undergrad in business school. My classmates knew this about me. And so to come back as an entrepreneur, and that was when I got the call to be the commencement speaker, it was like such a powerful full circle moment for me. I also got to go back to Cannes Lions Festival, and I remember getting my badge, and I had been to Cannes Lions Festival I'd spoken there so many different times, but I was always Ukonwa CMO of this, Ukonwa CMO of this, and I got all these speaking opportunities as Ukonwa Chief Marketing Officer or whatever. And so to go back to Cannes Lions Festival and be sitting on a main stage, and my badge said Ukonwa CEO of Zaia Ventures, I was like, wow, like these are things that I didn't ask God for. And for whoever kind of called me and said, oh, we would love for you to do this, I didn't even know there were things I wanted to do. And to be honest, it was okay if I never did them. But there's something really powerful about doing a lot of the things that you did before, but doing them in your name and for your company. Yeah. There is like this, it's an incredible feeling. And it was very validating in that moment to have those kind of, and be able to talk about topics that were about your current journey, not necessarily what you used to do, and just continue to add value to the world, but doing it on your journey, on your terms, is incredibly powerful.
I love that, because, and that was why I wanted you to talk about. I didn't even know about the bit that you didn't walk.
I didn't.
From your first degree.
I did not.
I mean, I can see making that decision to back then, so I understand that.
Yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do.
I think it's actually worthwhile to say that you've actually spoken at Kellogg too, where you got your MBA.
Yeah,
but it was under the billing of your titles.
I did. Yeah.
So I figured the UNC moment would be more impactful because, like you said, you're building this. It's your.
Well, it's so funny. So I'm on the advertising for Kellogg. So like the Kellogg MBA, like when you see an ad from Kellogg, I'm actually one of the people that they feature in their ad. And when they shot it, I was, CMO of Prime Video, and but I didn't even realize the ads were still running. And so I had a young woman. She was like, "I saw your ad for Kellogg." I was like, what ad? She was like, yeah, CEO Zaia Ventures. I was like, what, really? And so now, like, still, Kellogg is running ads with my image. They updated it as CEO Zaia Ventures. And I know as a marketer that they would not continue to run it if it wasn't effective.
Right.
And so, yeah, I was like, I know it's working. You know? And so to know that they continue to run the advertising that I shot like 3 years ago, and they're still running it till today. And she's like, oh my God, I get served your ad all the time, like on the digital ads. And they updated it to my new title, and it continues to be, continues to be effective. If I dare to say, because I believe I'm blessed, it's probably even more effective, because the anointing is on it. The fact that it continues to be there, but it's under the billing of who I am today, it just shows that like I trusted God with this next chapter of my life, and I haven't had to miss a beat. Like he has given, like I've got to build something completely new, and I didn't actually lose what I had before. And so it's almost kind of this. It's been a big blessing.
Yeah. And there's one thing I wanted to also share, because I've been front row in some years I haven't because of just time. And I've seen you though just navigate again the valleys and peaks. And through our friendship, I've also seen you navigate personal challenges as well. And I'm curious to know if there's any of those experiences when you look at it as a whole, if that's changed your perspective on success and fulfillment.
Yeah. I think that when you're younger, success is defined by achievement, and in some cases, the possession of things. And it was interesting. I just did an interview for the We Institute, and one of the questions they asked me is like, "What is the thing that you cannot live without?" And it was really interesting because I thought about it, and I was like, "There is nothing that I can't live without. Like things are not my thing." And it's just interesting how that transition has happened, where in the beginning, it's just like, it was about getting things and more things and owning bigger things and shinier things. And I'm now at a place in my life where I've been blessed with things and I'm very grateful for them. But there's nothing in my life, no physical thing in my life that I would not be comfortable giving up. I was like, what I think the way I actually answered that question was like, what I can't live without, like my husband is my rock, And so it becomes more about like the people that you love, and like the people that surround you, and like my faith that gives me meaning and gives me a reason to get up every day. And like those for me are the things that have like eternal significance and like long-term significance. Those are the things that really mean a lot to me right now. And the things that I thought would have meant so much to me when I was younger, and I worked so hard so I could buy them and collect them. After a while, I was like, I mean, I drive a nice car, but even if I didn't drive this car, I wouldn't care. I love my house, but to be honest, like I went on vacation with my husband. He was cracking up about this. Like we went on vacation in Italy, and we stayed in this the cutest little kind of cave house in a rock that had like 2 bedrooms. And I was like, I could live here. And he's like, what? And I was like, I could totally live here. I would be so happy here. Just me, you, like our kid, and like, like in this 2-bedroom in the rock. He's like, you have lost your mind. But he shut it down real quick. But I wasn't kidding. Like I could live there. Like I think I'm at a point in my life where like the things that give me joy, like being in beautiful places and learning new things with the people that I love, like that's what gives me joy, and it actually doesn't cost a lot. And so it's just interesting how you work your whole life for something, and then you kind of get it, and you're like, I don't know, actually, the journey is a lot more fun. The experiences are a lot more fun. The people that I get to do it with, like those are the people that I never want to give up. Like those are the people that want to share my life and my experiences with, and all this other stuff I could lose.
Materialistic stuff.
It's all like materialistic stuff. Like I was like, jewelry, car, like who cares? Like I honestly genuinely like who cares? So yeah, I think obviously it took me decades to learn this. But if I can shortcut it for anybody who is like literally killing themselves to get these things, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
It really isn't worth it. If you have a partner that you love, like just love them, and protect your relationship. One of the things also that I said in the commencement speech is love is worth fighting for. And so if you have love and you have found love and it is good love and it is healthy love, spend your energy fighting for that. I would rather you spend your waking moments pouring into that love than pouring into things or to acquire things that don't matter.
That is good advice.
Yeah.
So looking back, what would you say now? Because now you have all these different chapters. Do you think you can? Do you see a common thread that's been consistent? Of course, your faith has always been there.
Yeah,
but it's evolved over time.
Yeah.
But like, has there been a part of you that's just shown up consistently without you even knowing it? You look back on all the chapters of your life. Today.
Yeah, it's funny. Like my friends that have been my friends for a long time, they were like, "You have not changed at all." So I think that I have been consistent through it all. And sometimes it got me in trouble because I wasn't willing to change who I was or bend or break who I was to fit whatever situation I was in the moment. I've always been very dogged about that. There are a lot of things that I'm flexible about. I just a friend of mine, Julia, I think she did a TED Talk that's actually really brilliant. And she talks about knowing what your core is versus your flex. And so I think for me, the parts of me that make the core of me, I didn't have Julia's language, but that has been clear for me for a really long time. And once I have that, I'm actually willing to flex a lot.
Right.
So I can flex on a number of different things. Like people look at my career and they're like, you worked in beauty, then now you're in fashion, and then you also worked in entertainment. Like I've lived in like different continents and I've traveled to like 50 countries. Like I'm willing to flex on a lot of things and a lot of personalities and but my core though, my core has been inflexible. And I didn't have the language. Like Julia didn't give, I just met, Julia, and like now I know the language from her TED Talk, and I told her, I was like, this is brilliant. I wish I knew this earlier. But that core has been consistent throughout my life. And then outside of that core, I'm incredibly flexible. I'm like, where do you want to eat tonight? Wherever you want to go. Like I'll wear whatever, I'll travel wherever, I'll eat almost whatever. I will work with whoever, I will, switch jobs if I need to, industries, like all of that's been flexed. But the core of what makes me, the core that makes it possible to be who God put me on this earth to be, and all the different aspects of that, I have been incredibly inflexible on those.
So you mentioned friendship just a second ago, and I just thought it was interesting because as someone who was, I would call you corporate America famous, would you say it was either hard or easy to maintain the authentic relationships throughout those transitions, right? Because you said you had the same friends.
Yeah.
But it couldn't have been easy.
Yeah. So I have different circles of friends. And I have like my core friend group. And that core friend group, like once you get into that circle, it's hard to get in that circle. But once you get in that circle, you never get out of that circle. Like you will always be my friend. Like you don't get to choose to not be my friend. Like I would be like, whatever. Anyway, so going on back to this friendship we have, like like the people who are in that core, they are in that core. They've been in that core for decades. Even if you're new into the core, like if you make it into that core, like it's like you are in the core.
Right.
I have a lot of people that I make friends very easily, and I'm a very friendly person. I make friends very easily, and so I make friends like all the time. Over time, some people end up in the core, but for the most part, I have a lot of friends who are either on the next circle out of the circle after that. And so that part, I would say, I've always been very open to friendships because it's one of the ways that I learn. It's one of the ways that I learn. And I learn about new restaurants. Like I met somebody yesterday and I was like, oh my God, we're friends now. And they like introduced me to all these restaurants.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't made friends with them. So yeah, I think it's one of the ways that I learn. It's one of the ways that I live. And it's one of the ways that just adds so much joy to my days. And so I think that's really important. But yeah, I'm the same person to all of those circles of people. I think it's just when it comes to prioritization, like, okay, if I had this weekend, who am I going to spend my weekend with? My core friends, I would drop anything and be there for those people. And I had to have that core because when I was an executive, I didn't have a lot of time. And so I could not maintain intentional relationships with so many people. Like it's literally impossible. And so at least that way I could say, okay, like these are my core friends. And for these friends, I would be willing to prioritize, drop things at a drop of, change things at a drop of a hat, cancel a meeting to have lunch. Like I would make whatever sacrifices were necessary for these friends in my core. And then I know that the friends outside of that, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I show up as the same person to all those people because I don't believe in changing who you are. But in terms of prioritization, I feel like I'm willing to sacrifice the most for the people that kind of like are doing life with you, like the people that are in that core. And I've found that to it's really helped me kind of navigate. But I make friends all the time. And you know this. I'll be like, I just made this friend. And like, now we're going to go to this event. You're like, who is this person? When did you meet? I was like, you're going to love her. Let's go.
We do.
And we do. It works out.
That works.
Yeah, it works. I'm like, trust me, you're going to love it. We're going to have fun. And yeah, like that's the joy of life. Like that's the absolute joy of life. And being open to all of those interconnections that you make with people throughout the day, and all the joy and the experiences and the richness that brings to your life. I think that's incredibly valuable. And I hope that continues to be a part of my life for as long as I live.
So, all right, we're going to switch gears now, and we're going to go into the final part of this interview, which is the lightning round. And so...
Okay.
It's a quick answer.
Do I need to do anything?
No, you're just answering questions.
Okay.
It's not the Jimmy Fallon show.
Okay, let's do it.
See, look, QC babe, we just said answer questions. Just answer questions, questions. Yeah. And don't overthink it. There's no wrong answer. Okay. All right. The first thing is your personal mantra. What words do you live by?
I had this on my bio for a very long time, and I think it's pretty true. Work hard, play harder, pray hardest.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah.
I'll make a shirt out of that.
Yeah, I could.
Like I didn't need it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yellow.
A yellow shirt with the saying, got it. Check. Done.
What matters the most to you? We talked about legacy earlier, right?
My faith and my family.
Yeah. If this applies, what would you say would be your greatest fear?
My greatest fear, which led to what I'm doing right now, is getting to the end of my life and not doing what God asked me to do.
That's a big one. And I know there's brand Ukonwa. It's funny you said earlier that you don't believe in personal branding. That's going to be an interesting one for an executive marketer to say that. But, if you could describe yourself as the Kadara woman. I don't know if we talked about this, but Kadara means destiny, right? In 3 words, what would those 3 words be?
Describe myself.
Yeah, 3 words.
I am trying to see how other people would describe. How would I describe myself? I am fun-loving. I am direct. I am consistent.
Ooh, I like that. And that's why we're friends, because you're direct. Okay, so this was a good one. Since you're building, you have 3 business babies. What was the last thing you had to learn? What are you learning now?
What am I learning now? My tech platform leverages a lot of artificial intelligence. And that landscape is changing all the time. And so my team and I are just doing a lot of experimentation as to what aspect of artificial intelligence is interesting for us that we want to incorporate into Zaia, and what aspects of it don't make sense for our platform. But you kind of have to learn and experiment across a number of different things to see what makes sense. So I would say, yeah, I'm learning a lot about AI right now.
That's a cool one. And you already talked about your favorite book earlier, The Miles Monroe is one of them. Do you have another one, a quote you'd like to share?
That is for sure. That book changed my life. And it's just like, if you don't know Miles Monroe, like just go and geek out on his videos and just watch his sermons and just listen to them and like read every book. The wisdom that God gave that man is just, and he knows so much about a lot of things. It's not just biblical, it's also strategy. It's about relationships. It's about how to manage money. Like, he was just gone too soon. And I'm just so sad that he's no longer with us. But I would definitely recommend the book In Pursuit of Purpose. But really, any book written by Miles Monroe, any video that he's any podcast, like anything that he's done that was podcasted when available back then, but anything that you could get your hands on, Miles Monroe, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good one. And actually, I didn't know about that book that you told me about. You told me about the book, funny enough, because I bought it after you told me about it.
Oh, really?
Because I think we did a book exchange. We did, like, I told you about it.
Yeah, because you told me about Chase the Lion, which that was a good one.
All right, so this is good. So if you could go back in time, what would you tell your 20-year-old self? And she's already in America. So.
Yeah, I want to tell my 20-year-old self, I'd be like, girl, it's going to be okay. Like, just chill. But I mean, one of the words that I would have used to describe myself is intense. Like, I've always been like an intense person. I tell people I'm a sprinter, not a marathoner. Like, I've never been the like, even kill, like just steady as she goes. So I have a feeling that I would tell her to chill and she wouldn't chill anyway. But I would still tell her to be like, it actually works out okay. It actually works out okay. So all those things that you used to like worry about, will it happen for me? Will you do this? Will you do that? You're like, the choice that you made, and in some cases, the unpopular choice among your circle, among your corporate colleagues, the choice that you made to serve God with your whole heart for your whole life is the best choice you ever made. Because in making that choice, you got everything else. And so one of the things that God said to me was kind of like a love story to me. He says, they say you can't have it all, but it's not true. You can have it all if you put me first. And it's really true, because in serving him, he gave me all the things. Like, I did end up becoming a wife to an incredibly loving man. Like, I did end up, having a son, and he's an incredible person. Like, I did end up like traveling to all these different places. I did end up living my dream of being an entrepreneur. I did end up being a designer that I had, dreamt of. So like, I did end up doing everything that I imagined that I would do. And the world makes you believe that if you're so passionately after him, you will sacrifice all of these things. And it's not true. He will, if you trust him, it may not happen in the timing that you want, but when you stop and you kind of look back at it, you see that he gives you everything that you ever asked for. He's for sure always there. And he gives you everything, that all those dreams that he put in your heart, he'll give you every single one.
Oh, that's a good one. All right. So this is a good one. What would you consider your greatest achievement to date then? Being
the wife of Mr. Ojo.
Ooh. Oh. We're gonna make sure you watch this part. All right. And then looking back, what would you say about destiny and pursuing your purpose?
I think that one of the things that I've learned is that we always think of achieving our destiny like it's a pursuit, and we always assume that it's gonna take a lot of hard work. But kind of the visual that I've been using for my life is following my purpose and following my destiny has almost been like floating in a river where the river has momentum and it has current. But if you actually flow with the current, you can get to your destination, but with a lot of kind of like joy and without a lot of exertion. And so I've learned that like the easiest path in life actually is following your destiny.
Yeah.
Is following the current. What is hard is knowing that you're supposed to be doing something else. You know the current is going this way, but you're trying to go that way. That is the quickest way to exertion and exhaustion. Right. It's exertion and it's exhaustion. And what I would challenge you to do is follow, and you will discover, like, it's not like, this is my purpose. Like, just follow the path. Like, just follow, and you won't know the full path, but as it's revealed to you, give into it. Just like when you're flowing through the river, you don't know what twists and turns, whether it's going to be a rock, but you just know the current. And so if you just find the current and you just stay with the current, you'll find all these twists and turns along the way. But that is the fastest way to get from, because you can go faster within the current. You can still row within the current and go even faster, but it would take much less energy than trying to float or swim against the current. And so that would be my biggest advice on purpose and on destiny is you may not see the entire picture, but just find the current and float in the current. And that is the quickest way to your purpose and to your destiny. And it's without exertion, or it may have exertion, but it doesn't have exhaustion.
Yeah, that is so well said. Well, last question is, what are we going to be doing together for the next 15 years of our friendship?
What are we going to be doing together?
I know.
We're going to love each other and our families.
Yes.
We are going to travel.
Yes, and the big one is we're going to eat. No, we're gonna eat.
We're gonna eat.
And Italy. That's true.
I love Italy.
Yeah,
so of course we're gonna travel, and then we're both foodies, so we have to eat a lot.
That's why your homework yesterday was great, because you got us some more restaurants.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. So we're gonna eat a lot.
Yeah.
How about this? We're gonna travel and eat while we're traveling.
I love that.
So like we,
So and then we'll wear clothes that give us room for expansion.
There you go.
Well, Ukonwa, this has been amazing. Yeah. I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate you for being on this platform. And I think this was way more than I could have expected. So thank you for just doing this.
And thank you for flowing in your current and having
I am
me on your podcast.
I know. Thank you. Thank you. I love you, girl. Oh, I just thank you.
Well, I don't care.
Thank you. All right, that's a wrap. Well, that was a wrap on season 2's premiere. And it's also our very first video podcast episode of the season. I'm still taking in all the wisdom Ukonwa just shared with us. You know, there's something so powerful about hearing someone say, I was at the peak of my career, but I knew there was something else I was meant to do. Ukonwa's journey reminds us that success isn't just about impressive titles or collecting things. It's also about having the courage to follow your own purpose, even when it means eating your ego on a plate, in her words. I love what she said about finding your current. Life doesn't have to be an exhausting upstream battle. That was deep for me. When you're in alignment with your purpose, it feels more like flowing with the river. Yes, there are going to be twists and turns, rocks along the way, but you're moving with less effort and more joy. And so whether you're facing challenges as the only one in your workplace, considering a major pivot in your career, or just simply trying to live more authentically, I hope this conversation gave you some clarity and courage for your own path. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share with someone who might need to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe if you don't want to miss the rest of our amazing tool lineup. And oh, one more thing. Starting this Friday, I will share the reason why I started this podcast and my journey to building Kadara Media. And so until next time, this is Lola reminding you that your destiny is waiting, and all you need to do is find your current and flow with it. This podcast was created, produced, and recorded by Lola Shebo Harris and sound edited by Mo Isu. The Kadara Woman Podcast is a production of Kadara Media.